Hi, this is Chloe Ronay with the Creative Lives visual podcast for Opus. Artists can do things differently. We're able to push beyond boundaries, experiment with new ideas and materials, and reshape conventions, propelling ourselves and our audiences further. Every year, Opus partners with the Federation of Canadian Artists to sponsor the annual On the Edge competition. Open to worldwide submissions, this exhibition is for people working and thinking outside the box, offering them the chance to exhibit on a global stage and win prize awards. In this podcast, we'll be hearing from 3 previous winners, Amy J. Dyck, Frankie Watt-Elphinstone, and Glenys Takala. They'll discuss the benefits of being involved in an active art association and competing in juried exhibitions. Plus, they'll tell us why challenging themselves is a vital part of the creative process.
My name is Amy J. Dyck. I'm a figurative artist, but I tend to work more with the internal landscape of people versus the things that we see around us. I'm competitive. I think that there's something about shows that really helps us to find out kind of who we are by comparing ourselves against what's out there. I apply to competitions and art shows all the time, every month. And this particular show, the Painting on the Edge with the FCA, I've applied to every year, most years, for a while. So I gain a lot from juried shows, more than I realized at first. I think for me, I want to become better, right? So there's nothing like taking a painting out of my studio and putting it on the wall next to 30 other people. It does a lot for even just getting some context or helping me see kind of where I fit in the broader scheme, which is really helpful. It also helps me to see how people experience my work. So I think I'm saying something with my work, and then when it goes up in a show, I get to find out how people respond to it and react to it and feel about it, and because they talk about it and they'll either walk past it or they'll stand in front of it. So it gives me a lot of information. And the other thing about juried shows that I find helpful is that it helps me to grow a thicker skin, because I get, all of us will get rejected a lot. And the more you apply, the more rejected you get. And then the easier it is to apply to more shows and get used to the rejections. So I find that it's helpful for many reasons. I find it helps to be part of an arts organization. I think if you don't have an organization like this, you kind of sometimes can float a little bit and just say, I'm an artist and there's a million other artists, but you don't necessarily have a community. So I think it helps to join a group like this and to get a bit of recognition in a group like this, because it helps you to find a place where you can start, building up some connections and getting to know people and getting to know how it works as well, how the art systems work and how shows work. For this show, actually, for Painting on the Edge, there was either this show or another show in the FCA that I was thinking, I'm going to make this painting and I'm going to apply to one of those shows. And that was my motivation for making this piece. I thought it would have a shot at one of the 2 shows that I was working towards. Every piece I make is some sort of a challenge to myself to try to do some variation or something new that I hadn't succeeded in before. Like, I love realism, but I love pushing against the limits of it. So one of the challenges I had for myself was to make these figures not if you look closely, you'll see they start to kind of shift and move. So I've got a couple figures where there's extra arms on it. So if you look carefully, there's an arm that's maybe in one position, and then you look and you'll see it actually in another position at the same time. And so I wanted to see if I could challenge these notions that figures have to be still. Maybe they can move and shift, or maybe they can be more than what we expect at first glance. This is something that I've been learning a lot about recently, this idea of getting used to discomfort and trying to build our tolerance for discomfort, because that's how we grow. So I've been trying for a while to live actually in that space. I apply to shows and get used to rejections because they're uncomfortable, and the more rejections I get, the more I get used to that discomfort and the less intimidating it is. So I try for harder things next.
I'm Frankie Watt-Elphinstone, and the work I do is monotype printmaking, photo etching, and also painting. On the Edge show was an interesting call for me, because at the time the call came out, I had just finished a piece that is the start of a new sort of series of work that I'm I'm working on, and seeing the call and then the piece I just finished, which kind of struck me as what's the word? It held an emotion for me. I thought, oh, that would be perfect for this show. And within 10 minutes, I'd filled out the form and put the work in, which is unusual for me because I usually spend time kind of thinking about it a bit more. But that one seemed perfect. I think it's important to be seen in a curated show, so that the work has been seen by a jury that have got knowledge about the art world. And it gives you recognition, it gives you validation for what you're doing. It puts your work in context with other art, and seeing it up in a gallery of curated work that's been brought together is really, I find that really beneficial, really useful, because it gives your work a sense of where it fits in your contemporary life and in the contemporary art world. And also it gets seen by a lot of people, and it's great to have that validation, for sure. If you're just showing it to your family and friends and in a show that's kind of open to everybody, then you tend not to get that depth of thought, I find, because people are always going to say, well, that's great. You know, people who know you, they're going to think everything you do is wonderful, but whether they're honest or not. But anyway, but going into a curated show, you have to really it sharpens you up. I don't feel that I ever do a piece that I think, wow, that can't be improved. I'm always going back into what I do, thinking, how can I develop those ideas? What is this about? Is there something I need to know here? I go to a lot of webinars and classes still. I find I'm always learning. There isn't an end point. I think I generally challenge myself more, actually. I'm probably more critical, probably like a lot of artists, of myself than other people are necessarily of what I do. We all like to stay in our comfort zones, and when something shakes that comfort zone, we tend to revert to a place of what we know and who we are and what we're safe with. So getting to a place where you are comfortable with being uncomfortable means stepping outside yourself in a certain way, being able to take criticism, being able to take advice, even though you might not agree with it, maybe. Entering a juried show, you're always open to rejection. And rejection becomes part and parcel of that process. And being able to take that rejection and not take it personally, I think is important, because you probably won't get feedback on why you've been rejected, but it could just be that they've had hundreds of entries and your work didn't fit with the ones that were chosen. So being able to move on from that and be comfortable with that, I think, is really important. But I think for artists it's so hard, because we're putting ourselves on the line. We're putting our inner souls out there for the world to judge, and if the world rejects you, it feels very, very harsh, very personal. It's tough. Being a creative is really tough. Yeah. We're sensitive souls, right?
My name is Glenys Takala. I'm a painter, and I've been doing it for about 20 years, and my medium of choice is acrylic. I believe in competition. I think having jurors in competitions are fantastic. The only thing I really like to stress is that if you're going to enter competition that have jurors, just don't think that they're the only people that can let you know if you're making good art or not. You know, don't let them quantify your skills or your vision or how you want to create art. Now, me personally, I know that if there's jurors, and they're usually very respected artists, and they are supposed to be able to look beyond their own personal taste or preferences, And I just find that's a really good way for me to try and keep my art on point. You're always going to get visibility when you compete and put yourself out there, no matter your skill level. When you're first starting out, I think it's super important, take that first step, source out places that and exhibitions that are going to move you forward. It's exciting. It's a great thing to do. It'll introduce you to other artists and other collectors and just motivate you. I've been involved with the FCA almost as long as I've been painting. Through the FCA, I could see that there was opportunity to a larger art community, and in smaller areas, that is real opportunity, because we just don't have access to it, right? So it was a really big deal. You get comfortable with every level of attainment you reach. There's a comfort zone there. I find that myself especially, as soon as there's, any level of comfort, I have to go, okay, that's great, but it's time to push off again, and let's see where it goes. And I'm getting better at it, and getting better at taking that leap of faith and going into the unknown, and knowing it's allowing myself to ruin canvas, to just go, it's okay. The sun is going to come up. It's not the end of the world, and it's essential. If I could say anything, it's essential.
All three of these artists are striving to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and everyone, from the recreational painter to the seasoned pro, can push themselves to create differently. It's been over a year since our daily lives have been transformed, and now is the moment to reflect, to ask the questions we've refused to confront, dig deeper, and challenge our comfort zones. Because art is an almighty tool. In this difficult era, pushing ourselves beyond our perceived creative limits can generate meaningful change within us, in our communities, and even the world at large.